And a very happy Thursday to you at 12:08 in the West. Talk Radio 790 KABC, the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wags in Culver City.
John, the reviews are in, and the ladies of The View are not big fans of Gavin Newsom's podcast. Here's what Sonny Hostin had to say about Gavin's latest podcast with Steve Bannon.
And I believe that, if you are going to be a public servant, you better be unapologetically authentic, because voters can sniff out inauthenticity in a second. And I thought that was one of the most inauthentic things I have seen Gavin Newsom do.
Wow.
So you don't believe in the let
them hang themselves theory?
No, I'm terribly disappointed. I think you meet energy with energy. And what he did was he showed his pretty white teeth and his cute face and did nothing other than that. And I think it's despicable.
She's such an angry, unpleasant woman.
Which one?
To stand out on that set as the angry, unpleasant woman is quite a feat.
Well, somebody had to replace Rosie.
Well, now she's in Ireland. She looks like Katie Porter's great-grandmother, too. I looked at the video of Rosie when she moved to Ireland. Honest to God, I thought she was pushing 80. Apparently, she's in her early 60s.
Oh, my.
I don't know what's going on there. Maybe Ireland has the fountain of youth. I don't know. Maybe that's what she's looking for.
It does have a lot of beer goggles.
Or maybe it's just the fried potatoes, the baked potatoes, potato chips. Potato skins. Sometimes they can even make nachos out of potatoes. Maybe that's it. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. Well, we knew at some point this would happen, but now we have the actual empirical proof. The mayor of Los Angeles, Mayor Mother Goose, is finally starting to tank in the polls. And, Randy, she's in the danger zone.
No!
A new poll shows 41% of people who live in Los Angeles think Karen Bass's response to the wildfires was poor.
Ooh, that's not going to go over well when she runs for re-election.
And I'm pretty sure that's the lowest you could rank on the poll. For more, here's KCAL.
Tonight, L.A. residents are weighing in on how Mayor Karen Bass handled the Palisades fire. A new poll shows an overwhelming amount of people believe she could have done better. KCAL News political reporter Tom Wade is live in the Palisades with...
Just out of curiosity, who is out there who thinks that she did a great job with the fires?
Her staffers.
Well, outside of them and the arsonists, who are we talking about here?
Well, the DSAs that want favors from her, they like her.
Oh, yeah.
KCAL News political reporter Tom Wade is live in the Palisades with mixed reaction. Good evening, Tom.
And good evening to you, Pat. Well, we know that Mayor Karen Bass received a torrent of criticism over her initial response to the fires. We didn't know exactly.
Actually, the entire response, too.
And it all started with her on that jet bridge over at LAX being peppered with questions by the British reporter, and she just stood there and smiled.
We didn't know exactly how residents...
And by the way, one of the reasons that came off as being completely inauthentic is no one ever smiles at the airport, ever.
We didn't know exactly how residents just generally felt about it, but now we have that hard data, and it is not good news for Bass.
Primary's 1 year away, folks. Whoever wants to run better start running now.
L.A. Mayor Karen
You know
Bass...
what the headline should have been for this poll?
What's that?
You know what rhymes with Bass?
Well, yes. Yes, I do.
L.A. Mayor Karen Bass touring one of the city's 4 fire recovery centers, places fire victims can go to get financial help, job placement, among other services.
When we go to these centers, the people that we are meeting with, the people that are here for services, are still going through incredible trauma.
Recovery center.
And they blame you.
Yes, they do. Almost to a person.
Recovery centers like this and Bass's moves to streamline and simplify the city's bureaucracy to help fire victims rebuild may be part of a strategy to help rehabilitate her political standing in the aftermath of the fires.
It's not working.
No, and she is the source of the story saying it's going to take them 5 years to rebuild. Well, if it's going to take 5 years to rebuild, and that's with her streamlining the process, how broken is the process?
There is a Palisades fire victim that started a Twitter account cataloging every single day that he still hasn't gotten a permit. I think we're up to, what, day 51?
Oh, dear.
A new LA Times Berkeley IGS poll shows only 19% of LA residents think she did an excellent or good job.
Those 19% are the people that didn't pay attention.
Yeah, those are people who don't read the papers.
Responding to the fires. 22% said she did a fair job. 41% said her response was poor or very poor.
Those aren't good numbers.
How do you justify saying she did a fair job? Well, I guess the entire city didn't burn down, so we'll give her credit for that.
The poll also asked about confidence in her ability to manage the recovery. Of those polled, 34% said a great deal or some confidence. 54% said little or not much confidence.
That's even worse.
Yes, it is.
54% of respondents to this poll have little to no confidence that Karen Bass can lead us out of this disaster.
No. That is the complete danger zone for her. If you're Karen Bass and you're running for re-election, and the biggest issue that you've had to deal with as mayor, you have 54% of the people saying you failed, that's not a good look.
Well, and all the other issues she's been as mayor, what exactly is something she can tout as a success?
Yeah, she can't say that she got all the homeless off the streets. All she did was put them into broken down RVs.
And that bankrupted the city, leading to budget cuts.
54% said little or not much confidence.
It is significant. This was a mayor who was incredibly popular.
Yeah, but why?
No one knew anything about her. She was a longtime member of the assembly, member of Congress. She wasn't in charge of anything. She seemed like a pleasant person. She looked like a kindergarten teacher. Who doesn't like a kindergarten teacher? But the minute you put her in charge of something, it all fell apart.
Sarah Sidwani is an assistant professor of politics at Pomona College. She says the mayor's trip to Ghana days before the fire, her explanations about whether she was properly warned about the devastating winds that fueled the flames, and the firing of LA's fire chief are likely among the reasons why Mayor Bass's approval numbers are tanking.
Did Karen Bass think that her approval would go up when she fired the fire chief? Because I still don't understand why that decision makes any sense.
Yes, because she's looking for a fall person. And if that didn't work, I'm telling you, I know I'm right about this. The next person who was headed to the guillotine is Steve Soboroff.
Professor Sadwani says it won't be easy for Bass to right the ship.
If there's an opportunity for her to change something about this recovery process, which already has been marked with controversy and questions about who's actually in charge of recovery, if she's able to make some changes, perhaps she could begin to win some of that support.
Yeah, I don't think so.
And this woman has the good sense to live in Claremont.
Back.
In response to the poll, the mayor's office released this statement. The mayor is focused on recovery, which right now is...
By the way, as soon as you hear the mayor is focused on, you can ignore everything else the mayor has to say.
Oh, yeah. What has she focused on so far? Homelessness, fires, the Olympics.
The mayor is focused on recovery, which right now is months ahead of expectations, and she is going to continue.
Whose expectations?
What, is this the bullet train part 2? Oh, we've exceeded all of our expectations. It's going to take 5 years to rebuild, but look at us. Look at the progress we've made.
We're doing a great job.
And
Give me some stickers.
And she is going to continue pushing it forward. As crews continue clearing the charred...
Yeah, she's going to push it forward all right off a cliff.
As crews continue clearing the charred ruins of thousands of homes in the Palisades, Bass is trying to highlight the expedite.
By the way, have you seen those emails that have gone out from her campaign people and her fundraisers that say it's racist to criticize Karen Bass for the Palisades because nobody's criticizing white Catherine Barger for Altadena?
Oh, my God. Well, first of all, Altadena isn't in the city of Los Angeles. So if you're in the city of Los Angeles, which is infinitely bigger than Altadena. You're focused on what's going on in your town and not some other town. The other thing is that Altadena seems to be getting action. You have Barger and the governor and the feds that are over there barking orders, trying to get things done lickety-split. They're also getting contractors who are performing tasks at a reduced rate in Altadena than in the Pacific Palisades. So in Pacific Palisades, according to the people who called in who work in that industry, not only are they dealing with delays trying to rebuild, but they're getting gouged in the process.
Bass is trying to highlight the expedited debris removal process, trying to convince...
Barbara Ferrer worked overtime to mop up all that ash.
Oh, yes. Just call her Alice.
Trying to convince Angelenos that under her leadership, the recovery and rebuilding phase is moving at an unprecedented rate.
There were a series of errors that all it needed is one domino.
Chuck Peel lost his home in the Palisades. He says the mayor's latest poll numbers are not a huge surprise.
Generally speaking, I would probably agree on the not great response. To me, I thought one of the biggest missteps wasn't even how she was prepared to handle it, but how she went about pushing the blame onto the fire chief and firing her in the middle of this.
That backfired so hard on her.
Oh, yeah. And the minute they go the racial angle, that lets you know they have no argument.
Well, and that's exactly what happened at Kristen Crowley's appeal hearing. We didn't play the sound of it, but that meeting was flooded with so many people for public comment that the gadflies didn't even have a turn to speak. And you had a lot of union people that were out there defending the fire chief, but you had a lot of community coalition people, which was Karen Bass's organization that she founded before she got into politics, that Marquise Harris Dawson ran before he got into politics. They all showed up and they said, you cannot reinstate the fire chief because LAFD is racist.
If you play that card and you don't win, let me tell you something. There's nowhere for you to go. You're not going back to Congress. You're not going to become governor. You're not going to become U.S. senator. If you try that in L.A., it better work for you, because if it doesn't, you're done.
That's, in my opinion, from a management standpoint, don't do this in the middle of chaos.
Peel says he does give the mayor and other state and federal agencies higher marks for the recovery and rebuilding phase. He says he's impressed by the teamwork that he's seen at this point. Reporting live in the Palisades, I'm Tom Waite, KCAL News.
So there you go. 40% of respondents to this poll said that Karen Bass did a poor job responding to the fire, and 57% of respondents have little to no confidence that Karen Bass can lead us out of this disaster.
Well, and here's what else we know. Okay, so that guy at the end of the report there says that she's doing a better job with the recovery than she did with preparation for the wind and for the fires. You know who doesn't believe that? Other elected Democrats in Los Angeles. And we know this because the text messages between the mayor and the supervisor, Lindsay Horvath, were leaked to the newspaper, and Horvath is horrified at the response of the city of Los Angeles. We also have two Democrats on the city council, Tracy Park and Monica Rodriguez, who appeared on this program yesterday, who have been extremely critical of the response coming from the mayor's office. If you're getting that kind of criticism from elected leaders within your own party in the relevant places, what does that tell you?
Oh, you're so optimistic.
The two members of the city council are more than happy to speak about it publicly. Horvath just leaked all of the text messages to the newspaper, so she doesn't have to claim responsibility for it.
But who else could have had those text messages?
Yeah, no kidding. So we got two of them who are overtly aggressive, and one is passive-aggressive.
And that's why Karen Bass is cozying up to the Democrat Socialists of America, Los Angeles. And that's why she did that press conference with Ulysses Hernandez. And that's why when she fired the fire chief, she was joined at that press conference by Marquise and Hugo.
But if this is what we know about publicly, how many of them do you think are trashing her privately?
Oh, it's all of them.
I'm sure.
Blood's in the water.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, if you missed the 12 o'clock hour yesterday and you missed out on the special ed Godfather going on up in Oakland, you need to go back and listen to that podcast.
There was a big Shangy update yesterday.
Absolutely.
Go to KBC.com, click on podcast.
And he said absolutely.
Go to the Apple Podcast app, iHeart, Spotify, search for The John Phillips Show, hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes.
Absolutely.
You can do a Google on the YouTube or get that handy-dandy KABC app.
Absolutely.
Search KBC AM in the Apple App Store or the Android Store. It's the easiest way to listen live to this radio station and download all the podcasts.
Absolutely good.
Love to shake your hand.
Yes, it's been amazing.
In the meantime, what do you say we make a couple of listeners very happy?
Well, let's do that right now. 790 KABC welcomes global phenomenon and illusionist David Blaine at the Encore Theater at Wynn Las Vegas with 6 headlining performances through April 2025. Tickets are on sale now at Ticketmaster.com, but right now, caller number 9 at 1-888-790-5222 gets a one-night stay at Wynn Las Vegas and a pair of tickets to the show. Prizes furnished by Wynn Las Vegas. Good luck dialing.
While Karen Bass is failing in Los Angeles, the mayor of San Jose is lighting it up in the northern part of the state. And recently, Randy, he sat down with Fox 11's Alex Michelson.
That's because San Jose Mayor Matt Mahan not only was the biggest, most outspoken proponent of Proposition 36 on the Democrat side for a big city mayor, he is now getting a lot of headlines for his newest policy to deal with the homeless. If you don't accept the housing, you're getting arrested.
Good for him.
For more, here's the interview with Alex Michelson on Fox 11 and The Issue Is, which airs Friday nights on Fox 11 and Sunday mornings on KTVU Fox 2 in the Bay Area.
There is a new approach to end homelessness in San Jose. Unhoused people could be sent to jail if they repeatedly refuse offers of shelter. It's called responsibility to shelter. And San Jose Mayor Matt Mahan is the man behind the concept. Mayor Mahan joins me now. Mayor, thanks so much for being with us. What is the basic policy?
Well, thanks for having me, Alex. The concept here is that we're asking our residents and taxpayers to invest tens of millions of dollars in building basic, dignified shelter, often individual rooms with a door that locks, even often private bathrooms. And when we go to great expense to do that, do repeated outreach, and do everything in our power to help people move indoors into a safe space with supportive services, if they repeatedly refuse, we need to get them into the care of the county. We are beyond the point at which the city can help that person with the tools at our disposal.
Damn right.
They're going to come down on him like a ton of bricks over this, because what he is going to prove is that the homeless problem is not a housing problem. It's a drug and mental health problem, because he is providing them housing at a cost that the city is paying the bill for, and many of them are refusing it. They're going to say that he's heartless for putting them in jail, but not only is he going to clean the streets of San Jose, he is going to destroy the arguments they've been making for decades.
Well, and it's also something that's very interesting that we've seen very evidently in San Francisco. We're seeing it in Los Angeles, too. Part of the reason some of the homeless that are on the street in these encampments doing drugs or refusing housing is because they already have it.
Yes, and they prefer to be in the encampments because that's where the drug trade is.
My proposal is we press trespassing charges as a way of getting them into a county behavioral health court so that a judge who specializes in mental illness and addiction or other related issues can determine the best path forward. The goal is not to put people in jail. It's to create accountability for coming indoors. And if someone is truly unable to accept that help, get them over to the county where hopefully they can get the help that they need.
Get them into drug treatment or put them in the loony bin, because anyone who chooses the streets is not someone that can make their own decisions.
And here's what you can do if you're him. Just buy into the premise that it's a housing problem. The governor says it's a housing problem. The public health people say it's a housing problem. The legislature says it's a housing problem. Okay, I've solved that problem. If they're not accepting it, then this is something new that we obviously haven't been dealing with for a very long time in California. So let's deal with it by enforcing the law.
Alex then asked Matt Mahan, does this mean that you're going to be forcing people into treatment?
And in that scenario, they not necessarily just locked up. They could potentially be given treatment. Would they be forced into treatment?
No, we don't do forced treatment. I think there's at least forced medication. I do think that mandating treatment and giving people a choice if they are committing other crimes is acceptable. At some point, the impact on the community is so great.
By the way, that's a nod to the fact that once you pick these people up for trespassing, then you Prop 36 them because they've got meth on them.
Oh, sure. They have drugs in their possession. They probably have stolen items in their possession. They probably have been going to the bathroom in public. There's a whole list of laws that they violate on a daily basis. And if you want to blow the whistle, you can.
Well, and this is another thing that we've seen with the mass arrests of some of the big drug den parks in San Francisco that the new mayor, Daniel Lurie, is putting in. When you do these big arrests of all the drug users and drug dealers, I believe 30% of all the people they arrested at Jefferson Park had outstanding warrants.
Oh, sure. Just imagine if you took this philosophy to MacArthur Park, or you took this philosophy to Venice Beach or Hollywood or wherever the homeless are, you could clean those areas up lickety-split.
Oh, you could, but not with the political will we have of the people elected in Los Angeles, because we could have chose someone like Matt Mahan in 2022 with Rick Caruso, and we picked Mother Goose.
Impact on the community is so great that we have to have accountability and create consequences. But what I'm talking about here is not even necessarily people committing serious property or violent crime. I'm trying to address the fact that we just built brand new interim housing with an in-suite bathroom, kitchenettes. I mean, these look like market
kitchenettes. Oh, these are fancy.
Wow, that's better than a Hampton Inn. That's a Homewood Suites.
kitchenettes. I mean, these look like market rate apartments. And when we did repeated outreach to the encampments in the neighborhood, 1 in 3 people in the encampment said, no thanks, I'd rather stay here on the streets. That's not sustainable. It's not acceptable. It isn't fair to the broader community. What I'm looking for is accountability to come indoors. And if people repeatedly refuse, getting them into a behavioral health court where, to your point, they're not sitting in jail, they're actually getting connected with a program and they have a choice to enter treatment.
Here's something else you should think about. If 1 out of 3 are upfront about it and say they don't want it, and 2 out of 3 accept it, do those 2 out of 3 actually stay in the unit, or do they just accept the unit and use it as a storage bin, and then they hang out in the encampments where the drugs are?
That's the thing we got to crack down on. And I will say another thing that San Jose is doing that a city like Los Angeles will never do is they have an overnight camping ban. In fact, they just extended the hours. You cannot be sleeping on the street anytime from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Or doing a good job.
Oh, now, next, another thing that Matt Mahan wants to do that might also ruffle some feathers is he wants to change the way raises are given out in the city of San Jose, because he believes nobody should be getting a raise until the city meets certain performance metrics, like getting the damn homeless off the street.
Compare this to Mother Goose. Compare this to Shanghai. Compare this to what you're seeing in other parts of the state. San Jose is light years ahead of everyone else.
So in terms of incentivizing for this to actually happen, you're also announcing something pretty interesting in terms of the way your city moves forward, which is bonuses for doing a good job in government. What a concept. Can you talk about how that works and if you're getting any pushback on that?
Yeah, well, inside the building, there are people who love it and people who hate it, but the community overwhelmingly likes the idea that any pay raises that we get...
This guy speaks so differently than so many other big city mayors.
Oh, compare him to Gavin or Kamala, where they speak in these word salads that mean nothing and you can't even understand what they're saying. And this guy speaks in plain English because the arguments that he's making are not complicated. It's just common sense.
Any pay raises that we give to senior leadership, starting with me, with the mayor, city council members, city manager, city attorney, and those most senior department heads, that any raises beyond cost of living must be tied to performance on the things people care most about.
Could you imagine if we did that in L.A. County? No, in L.A. County, Barbara Ferrer gets a raise every single year, even though the county is worse every single year that she's in charge of public health.
No, thank
Well,
you.
they would bastardize it. So instead of how many homeless people did you get off the streets, the raise would be based on how much Narcan you gave out.
Or not even Narcan. How many needles and meth pipes did you give out? Because that's what Barbara Ferrer's primary mission is, to pass out as much drug paraphernalia as possible in the sake of harm reduction.
On the things people care most about, getting people indoors and ending homelessness, cleaning up the city, bringing down the crime rate, building the housing we need where it makes sense, supporting our small businesses. So my proposal is this. Each year when we pass a budget, we should identify a small set of focused goals that reflect our community's greatest needs. We should set
San Jose's greatest needs: cleaning up the homelessness, dealing with crime, and having something else that's fun to do besides the sharks.
Well, think about this for a second. How different would the process be in the Pacific Palisades of getting homeowners the permits they need to rebuild if there were performance bonuses given to city officials for making sure that that happens in a timely manner?
I mean, wasn't that the strategy to rebuild the freeway after the 94 earthquake?
Yep, that was Dick Reardon.
We should set a performance target where we want to be at the end of that fiscal year. We should measure how we actually do. And at the end of the year, we should not get any raise without results. This should be tied to measurable performance for the people with the most authority, the most power at City Hall, and frankly, in most cases...
Oh, we're so close. He's not one of those, though.
And frankly, in most cases, the highest salaries.
I would love to see that. I'd love to see live performance reviews, which they usually do in closed session at like LA City Hall or the LA County Board of Supervisors. Those should be televised.
How did San Jose get it right and everyone else get it wrong?
That's a good point. Now, Matt Mahan was asked, have other mayors of the other big cities in California reached out to him about these wild policy proposals?
And real quickly, are you hearing from mayors in other cities around California that either like or dislike these ideas? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people watching this that think, I wish my mayor would do this.
I wish my mayor would do this.
No kidding.
No, my mayor decided to appoint a head of the DWP and give her a doubling of the regular salary for nothing.
And we have a mayor who says that if you send her an email and tweet out information that says that there's wind and fire risk coming, it doesn't count unless you send it directly to her with an edible arrangement.
Well, we're getting an overwhelming response from the community. I'm not hearing a whole lot from elected officials about it, but maybe that'll come in time. But I will.
The big city mayors are still pissed at him for going around with Prop 36.
Oh, sure. And most big city mayors are funded by the unions, and the unions don't want any part of any of this.
About it, but maybe that'll come in time. But I will tell you, from San Jose residents and on social media, folks from all over love the idea that we would be that transparent. That's what I have tried to do. Coming from the private sector, I have a tech background. I came into government 2 years ago. We set up dashboards. We focused in on a few key issues. We've really increased our ability to measure what we're doing.
This is what Caruso could have been.
Absolutely, to quote our favorite mayor.
You caught yourself halfway through saying it, didn't you?
I did.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Where your tax dollars are going, how much impact they're having. I think the next step is to say our pay raises should be tied to measurable improvement in things like public safety and ending homelessness. Yeah. I just think that's common sense.
And such a tech approach from one of the biggest tech cities in the state, San Jose. Matt Mahan bringing business to government. Thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Not something you usually hear on this show. That's a good mayor.
Yes. And I'll tell you, I've talked about this before at the state level. Silicon Valley, the tech industry, is the dominant industry in the state of California. For the most part, they only care about what directly impacts them, and outside of that, they don't care. And the people who work in that industry are, generally speaking, very socially liberal, and that dictates how they fill out their ballot, which is part of the reason why they're part of the problem. However, the state has deteriorated so much, I don't see how they continue to do business here unless there's improvement. We've already seen some tech companies move out of the state, including Hewlett-Packard. And didn't some of Elon's companies move out too, or at least shift some of the workers to other states?
I think Twitter moved from San Francisco to San Jose, and then I think the headquarters for some of the businesses, they moved to Austin.
Okay. So the tech industry has a couple of questions they need to ask themselves. Because so many of them live and work in San Jose, and certainly they use that airport, they need San Jose to function. And clearly they got involved at the city level to the extent that they got a sane person elected mayor, and that city is going to be way ahead of everyone else in California. And to solve their immediate problem, the city where they live and the big city where they use the arena and the airport and all of those things, that's going to be functioning. But the state is not functioning. And what they did at the city level in San Jose is possible at the state level. If they want to get involved in the next race for governor and they want to dump $100 million into that race and get behind a candidate who might have the pedigree to be governor but doesn't have the money, let's say they get behind Lonnie Chen, for example, who ran for controller last time, came very close but lost. If they get behind Lonnie Chen and they say, okay, here's $100 million. We're going to put $100 million in an IE, independent expenditure, and we're going to spend what it takes to get this man elected, you would be surprised how much you could move the needle. But that's what they have to do to make this happen. The grassroots stuff doesn't work at a statewide level in California. We're too big. We're the size of Japan or the United Kingdom or France or Germany. It doesn't work that way anymore. Maybe you can do that in Delaware. Maybe you can do that in New Hampshire. You can't do that here. You need serious cash to move the needle. And Silicon Valley has the power to do it. And we've had dominant industries in the state do that before. That's what the railroads used to do. That's what Southern Pacific did. They threw their weight around when it impacted them when they saw the state going down the tubes. There's no reason why the tech industry can't do the same thing. They did it in San Jose. Now let's do it statewide. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Jenny writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com about San Jose. My daughter went to SJSU and almost every day received an email alert of violent crimes being committed on campus by homeless people. The campus was crawling with them. They were in the restrooms of the library. They would stand outside the class windows and make obscene gestures. When my daughter had a night class, she would call me while walking to the car. That campus sucks, and the homeless had free reign. She couldn't get home fast enough.
Well, that sounds like it's not going to be a good Yelp review.